And we are back with another episode of Game Time Chat. We have a bit to talk about today, and I've got to say, I'm not thrilled about all of it. Starting with that NBA Finals, we might as well just get right into it. I'll start off by saying congratulations to the Boston Celtics and their victory over the Dallas Mavericks. They won in a very dominating fashion, 106-88, left nothing to question, and I'm going to also say congratulations to Jaylen Brown on winning Finals MVP. I don't want to get too much into the statistics of everything. It's been so long, and I apologize for the delay and the episode. But one thing I was really impressed about was Jaylen Brown, because, he did average, I want to say about 7 points or so less than Jason Tatum, but he did guard Luka Doncic over the course of 150 possessions, which did make up for about twice as many as any other Celtics player. And we can argue that Luka is not only the best player on the Dallas Mavericks, which almost goes without saying, but potentially on the entire basketball floor, if we're being honest. Despite him losing and despite his blemishes on defense, we'll say, still, the best. But either way, 150 possessions, he guarded Luka. And to Drew Holiday's point, he mostly guarded Kyrie, while averaging 14.4 points, shooting 53% from the field, just about 54 for rounding up, and 42% from the three-point line with averaging 7.4 rebounds. That's incredible for a guard, and what we definitely should argue, if it is a question, is whether or not Drew Holiday was a missing piece to the Boston Celtics, because I believe he was. Personally, I did really enjoy watching Marcus Smart play and the role that he played over there in Boston. I felt like he was like the voice for them. He brought that attitude and that grit. But since his departure, with them bringing on Drew Holiday, I feel like Jaylen Brown took over that role a bit, especially here down the line in the playoffs and in the finals. All in all, congratulations to them. But we now have to ask ourselves, will Luka win himself a championship? And if so, when? Because with this Dallas Mavericks team, I can tell you right now, it's not going to happen. You had a couple of guys who are, a couple of starters outside of Kyrie, his Robin. And since we mentioned him, we just might as well say it. He played poorly. He let the crowd get to him. He let his nerves get to him, and it definitely was the best. It got the best of him, and it showed. He played pretty well at home, but unfortunately, the first two games of the series were in Boston, and of course, Game 5 was also in Boston. Nonetheless, Derrick Jones Jr., he averaged 6.6 points throughout that series, and PJ Washington, basically we can say he's their third best player out there offensively, which is not saying much, but he averaged 10.8 points. Versus OKC, the number one seed in the West, he averaged just about 18 points. That is quite the drop-off, and that just really speaks to the strength of the Boston Celtics defense, I would say. We know they're a good defensive team. They were ranked pretty highly this year, but it really showed with the pressure that they were putting on the Dallas Mavericks. Luka can't do it by himself. Although his play style worked a bit, right? They did make it to the finals. He didn't do it all by himself. He had help from Kyrie. But it seemed like they had their groove going in round 1 and round 2. They faced the Timberwolves. Same thing, kind of switching off with, whose turn it is to take over the game. And it worked, and it flowed. And then they got to the finals against Boston, and it seems like they lost that. Now, it could have been Kyrie not showing up, and of course, Dallas is Luka's team, so maybe he felt like he couldn't trust him anymore. And if you're shooting, 20-something% from the 3-point line, you're averaging under 15 points against these guys when, I'd say despite him not making an all team offense or, even being an all-star this season, I think we all know Kyrie is still a star in the game, despite those things. And that might be a conversation for another time as far as the voting and all of that, because you have this 64-win team in Boston, a championship team in Boston, and they had one player who was on an all offense, all defense, right? Jason Tatum. Not the Eastern Conference Finals MVP, not the Finals MVP. On a 64-win team, you have one all offensive player. So that can be another discussion as far as how the voting goes. But I think Brown showed, what he's worth and why he is still there and why they didn't, and good for them not trade him, a while ago when they were discussing it, possibly blowing up that team. It's good they didn't, because without him, without every single piece that they had, they don't win this championship. Now, moving forward, what do? They're going to have to do something about Al Horford. We know he is efficient with the minutes that he gets, but if they're going to want to make another run at that chip, they're going to have to get younger in some areas, and that is one of them. Something that they do have on their side is that as far as them in the playoffs, the world did not see them at maximum potential. And what I mean by that is there is a man named Kristaps Porzingis who was hurt. We have not seen them at full potential, so they do have another gear that they can kick it into with Kristaps. We know he's a special player. Can he do it by himself? No, we've seen him on a few different teams, and it doesn't work everywhere. But, that's basketball and that's just sports. But it does seem to work in Boston. And we saw a glimpse of that in the finals with how dominant he could be. And if Kristaps doesn't play game one, we won't do that. We won't do that. Oh, hell. If Kristaps doesn't play game one, I think we're having a different conversation right now. That's what set the tone for the series right there. That and Kyrie worrying about the crowd, what they think and what they're going to say, the media, the ex-Celtics players. But anyways, congratulations to the Celtics. It was Father's Day this past weekend. I myself am a father, and I will say I did enjoy myself a nice cigar that day, just like I had hoped. I had a nice cigar. It was called an El Pulpo, with Mexican tobacco on the outside and Nicaraguan tobacco on the inside. And it was nice. It was smooth, earthy, and relaxing. Caught a bit of the U.S. Open, and then, of course, the UFL championship game that day. It was all right. But one thing you did not see, where were the commercials for Father's Day? There's always commercials for Mother's Day. Where were the commercials for Father's Day? No, I'm just kidding. But it was good, though. It was good. Shout out to all the fathers out there. There's quite a bit to discuss with the NFL and the NBA. To start, we can touch on the NFL and some of their contracts. There's quite a few guys still waiting to get paid. You have Dak, he wants his extension. He wants over $300 million. Trevor Lawrence of Jacksonville, he just got a massive extension and got $275 million, making him right up there as the highest paid quarterback next to Joe Shiesty. And as I say those two names together, I don't feel like they're equal. I don't understand how Trevor Lawrence is being paid as much as Joe Burr. Joe Burr is significantly better. And in the years, I won't say the few years, but in the years he's been here in the league, he's gotten to the playoffs, in the postseason, been to the Super Bowl. He's done some things. Trevor has done nothing. The kid has great hair. He's really marketable. Seems like his fans love him, but he's done nothing for that franchise. Definitely not with what they hoped and the hype that was around him. Still nothing. And then you put this contract out there, and I still don't know what's going to happen. And then you have a guy like Tua. He's due a big contract as well, and he's looking at right around that type of money as well. And despite Tua being a little shaky, I would still take him today over Trevor Lawrence. Receivers want their money. CeeDee Lamb wants his money. Jamar Chase wants his money. You have both of the Eagles receivers who got paid. I don't think it was necessarily a bad thing. I think it was, rather team friendly, their contracts and them doing it early. But I'm a Steelers fan, so I, in my younger years, I grew up watching these guys take pay cuts. Ben's taking a pay cut. James Farrier's taking a pay cut. James Harrison's taking a pay cut until he didn't, and I understood that. But just basically, you had all these guys around the organization who are taking pay cuts in areas so that we can use our money elsewhere to make the team better and see success. And then we kind of see this shift in the league with players who, not to say aren't as team friendly with their contracts because they're humans, they have families to take care of, this is their livelihood, and I try to understand that. I'm still a fan, right? Which is why I can appreciate when our guys take those pay cuts so we can, again, right, so we can see success. With that being said, CeeDee Lamb, between him and Dak Prescott, there's going to be no other money to go around. Micah Parsons going to want his money. And Justin Jefferson set this standard, almost you could say, for what a receiver could be paid. And they're looking at that like, well, you better give me more. I deserve more than him. Do I think CeeDee Lamb is better than Justin Jefferson? No, I'd say no. If you ask me who I would prefer, CeeDee Lamb or Justin Jefferson, give me Justin Jefferson. Line him up over there with my boy George Pickens. Whew. But yeah, these guys are going to want that money. Jamar Chase, he's going to want to get paid. And then you have his counterpart on the other side, T. Higgins, who's due up for a big payday too. Kind of tough when you have a guy like Jamar Chase on the team because he's not better than Jamar and he's not going to get paid more than Jamar. But him not holding out and making a whole scene, and he did sign his franchise tender. That in a sense is team friendly. I will say it's on the player it's not very friendly. He has no guarantees after this year. He's just a 1 year signing with this, right? The league average. However, next year he could get paid a lot of money. With the money that's getting paid out now, right? It only goes up each year. So that is a good thing. I do hope, he remains healthy, and I hope he has a great season, and I hope he get what he's deserved financially. But Jamar Chase, that's a bad man, and he's going to want his money too. So there's quite a few guys who are in some predicaments right now and are going to need to be compensated. And speaking of the Bengals, really quick, just want to go on a quick tangent. I saw something online that had ranked the top 5 all-time best Bengals teams. You had a team in 1988 as number 1, a team in 1981 as number 2, the 2022 Bengals, the 2021 Bengals at 4, and the 2015 Bengals led by Andy Dalton at number 5. And I only want to mention that because when it comes to football, yes, I'm a Steelers fan. But when it goes to college, I'm a USC fan. And I just have a hard time accepting the fact that this Andy Dalton-led team, him and AJ Green from 2015 are top 5. Not that any of the teams have won anything, but I feel like we need to remove one of these last 3 teams and stick in a team led by Carson Palmer. There was a year those Bengals swept the AFC North. Had never been done before. And it's, as I've said, that's the toughest division in football still to this day, especially today with the quarterbacks you have. I'm not big on Deshaun Watson, but just as far as his name and his past accolades prior to his bull jive, Deshaun Watson, Joe Shiesty, and Lamar Jackson, former MVP. That's a tough division. Defenses aren't half bad either, right? You got the defensive MVP down there in Cleveland, stealing that award from TJ Watt. But either way, I just wanted to touch on that. I feel like Carson Palmer and them boys are getting a bit played. I mean, there was even a Bengals team with Chad Johnson and Terrell Owens. Batman and Robin. Now, did they win the Super Bowl like they said they were? Nope. But they were a bad team. Back to this stuff. Yeah, some teams got some things to figure out and need to move around a little bit of money. Starting with the Cowboys, never been an issue for Jerry Jones out there. He seems like he's never afraid to spend the money, but you do have a couple of guys. One who I feel like he's shaky about, and that being Dak Prescott. I'm a huge fan of Mr. Dakota Rain Prescott, personally. But I'm also no fool and understand that when it comes to crunch time, when it comes to the games that really matter at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, all in all, Dak Prescott doesn't show up to the party. His alarm is on snooze. He can pump up the numbers in garbage time when his team is down by 30 points. He can beat up on those teams under 500. But when it really comes, when the rubber meets the road, when it's time to separate the boys from the men, unfortunately, Dakota Rain Prescott does not show up. And so I feel like it's kind of hard for them to kind of differentiate between the two from when you look at the stats. And he has that game where he threw for 375, 400 yards. And that's what you're just looking at, right? The box score, those stats. But it's only because you didn't watch the game that you don't understand that 275 of those yards came in the last quarter and a half, which is still impressive, but it came in the last quarter and a half where the game was already out of reach and nothing mattered, and he's just throwing bombs. Are the stats there? Yes, absolutely. But they're empty calories. They don't matter. Just like T. Higgins, I hope he has a great season. I'll be looking at him in fantasy, always am, because you hear those stats. That's fantasy football. Of course, you want a quarterback who's going to do that. As a fan, you want him to do that all the time, consistently, in the games that it does matter, not only in garbage time or against a sorry team, early in the season. As far as the tampering situation goes, shout out to the Eagles for beating the case. They beat the case. They were found, we'll say, not guilty in that. The Falcons not so lucky. That's another team. I'll always be rooting for the Falcons, always. Nonetheless, for those of you who don't know, with tampering, it's just basically when a team or a player is trying to, we'll say, make contact with the potential, signee out of the allotted or allowed window of communication, we'll say, that the league put out there. So they were penalized, but it's okay. They have their team. They got their players. They're okay. It just looks a little shady, but you know what? I'm sure everyone does it, and they're just the ones who got caught. Just like when the NCAA came down on USC all those years ago. Right. It's only Reggie Bush and Pete Carroll, right? It's only that school, that program. No, everyone's doing it, as we see, right? We've all found out everyone's doing it. They're just the ones who got caught, and they made an example out of them. We will not go into that. Plowing ahead. We got to clap it up for my boy JJ Reddick. My man got the position. I'm ecstatic for him. I'm so happy, and I'm so excited to see what he does next season with this Lakers roster. LeBron is potentially going to become an unrestricted free agent if he turns down his player option. to which he could, it's expected that he re-signs with the Lakers, and we could expect him, because he's 40 years old, probably another 2 to 3 year extension. 3 years worth 162 million. That'd be the max. That's a lot of money. But more importantly, it would solidify an absolute superstar. I still believe LeBron is still a top 5 player in the league today, maybe even top 3. The thing is, because he's been so great for so long, people have just kind of gotten complacent with him and just threw him in the back. Almost averaging a triple-double here at 40. That's impressive. No one is doing that. Most of the people in the league currently are not doing that. But he is. But he's just done this for so long that you get used to it. It's like when Russell Westbrook was averaging a triple-double for multiple seasons in a row. People weren't as impressed after he did it again. And you absolutely should be. That's incredibly difficult. Not that I would know because I'm not a professional athlete, but I can imagine. There's not many guys every day that get double-doubles, let alone a guard that's getting a double-double and a triple-double on a nightly basis while remaining healthy. Yeah, that's hard. Either way, they have JJ Reddick. He's looking to surround himself with an experienced coaching staff. I saw a couple of reports that threw out Rajon Rondo as a potential candidate, and that's another guy who I think would be an excellent assistant coach. He knows the organization, right? He won a championship with them. People try to take away the credibility of that championship, but if we're all being honest, any one of our teams would have, or as a fan, we would have loved for any of our teams to win that championship in the bubble. Because we did not, we are now going to sit here and try to invalidate it from whoever did. And who better to invalidate from than the LeBron-led Lakers? Of course. Not me. Again, I'm a fan. But Rajon Rondo, incredible basketball mind, great on-court coach. And him and JJ, I can only imagine what they could do and how they could turn around that team. The next biggest thing for them, and what I feel like should be a priority for JJ Reddick, is in addition to finding that coaching staff that works for him and the team, of course, you want everybody on the same page, everybody with the same goal in mind, and also guys who are going to respect you. He is going to be a first-time coach, let alone head coach. I'm sure there's going to be some guys rolling their eyes and questioning him and the moves that he makes and the decisions that he's making. And you don't want that in your organization. You don't want that on your bench. You don't want that in your locker room, because then that creates issues in other areas. So you need everybody on the same page. And I think it's imperative that Jeannie and Rob give him the keys and let him do that. And then, of course, support him however they can in every way possible to make this as successful of a journey for him as possible. 4 years, not bad. It's not the 6 years that they offered Hurley. But I think in a couple of years, we'll see an extension come along. Because I do believe he's going to see success immediately. And as long as LeBron re-signs, which we assume he will, it's going to be hard to not find success with Anthony Davis and LeBron James as your two superstars. Yes, superstars. Now, it's going to take more than that. We know that. Look at Boston. You had Drew Holiday, Derek White, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Al Horford, Kristaps Porzingis, Sam Hauser. We're going to throw the man out there, okay? That man was lighting up. Peyton Pritchard with another dagger at halftime to just kick the momentum in, but that's realistically around 8-ish guys. Darvin Ham this last playoffs, he was still going nine deep on the bench, and it wasn't a great 9. You didn't need to do that, but they do have some pieces to work with. You got Austin Reeves, D'Angelo Russell, if he's still there, they don't move him. But with that being said, they also have a couple of trading pieces. And hell, bring Kyrie to LA. Reunite him with LeBron. I bet you they go to the finals. I bet you they would. But the likelihood of that happening, not likely. So to be real, they do need to get some pieces around LeBron and AD, some solid pieces. It doesn't have to be another star, although another star would be great. But even still, in addition to that star, they need other role players, good role players. Rui is solid. He's solid. But you do need someone who's going to be more consistent and show up each night on both ends of the floor, who can shoot consistently, who can play defense consistently. That's what you need. Because we have someone who can create their own shot, LeBron. You have someone else who can create their own shot, Anthony Davis. And again, with D'Angelo Russell, he can do the same. So we need guys, not we, they need guys who can fill in those gaps and do all the other things that you need. The guys who can play defense, the guys who are going to run up and down the floor night in and night out. And again, most importantly, be available. The best ability is availability. That was the issue with Anthony Davis, right? Anthony Street closed Davis. He was always hurting on the sideline. So we can talk about how great he is. We can talk about, or, at that time, what they would have done if he was healthy. It doesn't matter. He's out. He's not playing. Kristaps Porzingis, right? With his little bit of some injury trouble that he's had. It doesn't matter. He's not there. So what good are they? Either way, that's what I feel like needs to be JJ Reddick's priority. Putting together some pieces. We have the draft next week. He has some decisions to make, including, and it's, obviously there's no pressure, and I think the kid will be great, but Bronny, the expectation is that the Lakers draft him. At least that's what we believe LeBron's expectation to be. And that brings up another potential issue, his minutes. If he is drafted next year, let's just say hypothetically, developmentally, he's not completely ready. How many minutes does he get? Because if LeBron James Jr., if he's getting 15 minutes a game, I imagine you might have some guys who aren't the most thrilled about that in the locker room. Now, again, you want everybody on the same page. You want everybody with the same goal in mind. And if he's going to develop, he does have to play. Maybe send him down to the G League, back up to the NBA. I don't know, but you don't want to do that. You want him getting NBA minutes. Either way, they'll figure that out. That's not the biggest issue. It's not a glowing issue. But Bronny has only trained or worked out for two teams, the Lakers and the Suns. And as his agent said, that is by design. So it's no accident. Speaking of free agents, Klay Thompson. Speaking of things that are no accident, deleting and unfollowing the Golden State Warriors and removing all of their history or all of those photos and stuff from his page. I think it's rather unnecessary just because he's been there forever. He's won championships, multiple championships, and that is a part of his legacy. So I don't feel like that needs to be deleted. But again, the key words in that sentence were, I don't feel. And Klay is not me. Klay's sitting in his mansion somewhere at this point with the time it is. Probably asleep, but who knows? He could be up. He could be hooping right now. Probably has a court in his house. That's lovely. But what we can, I feel like, all say safe to assume, and that is that he will not be a Golden State Warrior next year. So now we need to look at places where he could go. I think all players want to win, but I don't think he cares so much about winning at this point in his career. I do think he's just going to go where the money is. So, Detroit. No, I'm just kidding. I don't think he'd go to Detroit even if we did offer him a max. It's like nobody wants to come to Detroit. But I think that dynasty is, we know the dynasty is over, but I think that team, that core, Curry, Klay, and Draymond, I do think it's over. They had a great run. 4 championships? Best season, regular season record in the history of the NBA. Spoiled by no one other than LeBron James, but we don't have to talk about that. This is their moment. But Clay had a great run with them, and injury got him. Changed the entire trajectory of his let's say the back half of his career, the back nine. Changed the entire trajectory. Now it's not over. I think with in the right place and the right support around him, he can be that great shooter, because we've all seen it with those players as age gets to them. Their athleticism goes. Not that Clay was ever the most athletic, but if they have a great jump shot, that can really keep them going. And we know Clay is one of the most pure shooters. One of the most pure shooters. He has a beautiful jump shot, but he did look different coming back from injury, and he couldn't move. It doesn't seem like he wasn't that, as he was once upon a time, that elite defender anymore. And I do think that's going to play a factor into where he has suitors and, how much money he's offered, even for a nobody in the NBA today, they're still getting $15 million a year, and that's nothing to frown at. But he does have some soul searching to do, and he'll have some decisions to make, I'm sure. Depending on that jump shot and how he can move, I almost want to throw out the Lakers, but I don't think he does well in that team. Not to mention all the hating he's done over the years with LeBron James, Someone who, a viable option that they should pursue. He's right across the way. Paul George. He's becoming a free agent. That is someone who the Lakers and JJ Reddick should strongly consider trying to land. If they can and they can afford it, that guy immediately makes them a serious top 3 team and a champion contender. 100%. Maybe he just gets a new contract with them. I don't know. I'm sure he loves being home and with, being able to be there with his family. But I know I know PG still wants to win. And he can still be down there in LA, here in sunny Southern California, playing with the Lakers. Because I think he's kind of done with, the Kawhi Leonard story. I think he's done with it. If not, he should be, if he wants to win. Because, again, he can't do it by himself. But that's someone that JJ and the Lakers should absolutely look into getting. As far as the Clippers, with Ty Lue, you have Jeff Van Gundy joining the coaching staff. That's different. Talk about it. It's been a while for Mr. JVG. It's been a while. He's been in that booth quite a bit for some of the last several years, but he's jumping back into the coaching game. And speaking of coaches, just as I was last welcoming a new coach into our team, Detroit, we pull a Detroit move and we fire our head coach. We got rid of Monty Williams, guys, just yesterday. And we owe him $65 freaking million. What the hell are we doing? We offered him a 6-year contract worth $78 million. The man was already going to take a break from coaching to be with his wife, who unfortunately had received a cancer diagnosis. So we send him this beautiful care package and a very lucrative offer of 6 years, $78 million. And he takes it and he brings us behind in Detroit to try to help pull us out of the gutter. We have yet another piss poor season. Let's call it what it is. Piss poor. We are 94 and 290 in the past 5 years. Now, he only had 1 year to do with that. So that's not all on him. But last year, we did have one of the longest losing streaks in NBA history. So that is on him. But he wasn't working with much. I'm no fool. It's the damn Detroit Pistons. We stink. And we fired this guy after 1 year into a 6-year contract. And then this is what bugs me. Right now we have 4 candidates from what's been reported. And, they are going to be reaching out to teams, trying to get permission to talk to other coaches here. But so far we have Sean Sweeney, Mike Amori. A couple of things about those guys. Sean most recently coached as an assistant coach for the Mavs, while Micah was an assistant coach for Minnesota, the Timberwolves. But both of those guys were previous Pistons assistant coaches. I want nothing to do with them. I don't want any old Pistons coaches back in the building. We got it. We got a new guy in the front office. Do not make that happen. Why? That's like breaking up with your toxic ex. You've let her go, or him for that matter. But for the sake of this conversation, we let her go. Don't think at that after a few years, with her being the side piece to somebody, she's learned a thing or two and can come back and help you now. She's changed. I'm surprised these guys got jobs in other places after working for the damn Pistons. Or, probably not actually. Because they're just aware of how bad the Pistons really are. So how could it be the coach's fault when you have these things happening? No. There's so much more. The front office has been a mess. Just like the rosters that we've put together. I reached out to a buddy of mine the other day talking about Brandon Knight. I was a huge fan of Brandon Knight, as a Pistons fan naturally, right? He stunk. Gosh. And then we get Reggie Jackson and Killian Hayes, and it's just the cycle continues. And if they hire one of these guys, that would be all that they're doing, continuing the same piss poor cycle as before. Go get a coach with no coaching experience like the Lakers did with JJ Reddick. Don't get these experienced guys. They're no good. All right. And then the other two guys right now, James Borrego, who I think I referred to as Bodego in episode 1. He was the New Orleans Pelicans head coach, but he's been interviewed and stuff by Cleveland. And then you have Cleveland's old coach who we're looking at, JB Bickerstaff. Now him, I don't know too much about him, but I do know that I don't believe he's that bad. He really helped turn around a bad Cleveland team. And trust me, I know they're bad. They're in our division. But he helped turn around that team, and the shooting got better, and more wins, and that's what you want to see, especially in today's basketball. Shooting improvement. We'll see how things go over the next week or so before the draft. Who knew? Look at that. Now we're a team without a head coach before the draft. You just never know. You just never know. And, for who knows, maybe there was other things to the Monty Williams firing, but if it was simply about performance and how the team performed, I don't think that's fair to him, personally. There's no way to get a fair evaluation with that roster that we have there in Detroit and that we've had for the last several years, as it has changed, but I don't think you can blame one coach. I don't think you can blame Dwayne. I don't think you can blame Stan. And I don't think you can blame Monty. Honestly. Again, we changed in the front office, so that's one thing. Okay, that's a start. But I don't think you can blame these coaches for the failures on the team. But when it comes to the money, you got Pascal Siakam. He just signed a big deal. Well, at least that's what is supposed to be happening. $189.5 million max contract coming his way so he can stay in Indiana. He's only 30 years old. And if we remember, it seems like it was so long ago, but it really wasn't. Just 5 years ago, he, helped lead the Toronto Raptors to their championship over there with Kawhi. He had won, a most improved player that year. And now you have this year. Either way, he's the third player to average 35 and 10 rebounds in his first 2 playoff games. Yeah, so not this year, but and he joins some big names in that list. The other 2 guys, Elgin Baylor in 1961, 60 years ago, and then the great Wilt the Stilt Chamberlain at 67. So you have that. Congratulations to Siakam if he gets that money or he gets the bag, as they say. I'll say congratulations to Caruso, Alex Caruso. We love Alex Caruso. He's done great things for that Lakers organization. He did great things for Chicago, and I think he'll do great things in Oklahoma City, where he is now headed. They traded him today for Josh Giddey, and despite the nonsense Josh Giddey got himself into, I'll never understand that with these players, but congratulations to him, and maybe he can find himself being kind of the face of the franchise out there in Chicago. They're looking for another playmaker, that big guy, to kind of replace Lonzo Ball. Maybe Josh Giddey's that guy. He's only 21 years old, so he's still really young. Big future ahead, potentially, of course, potentially. And we'll wrap it up here in a bit, just to touch on a couple of more things here. One thing with the Lakers and their coaching, no one has lasted for longer than 3 years since their head coach, Mr. Phil Jackson. And as I mentioned earlier, JJ Reddick is he's getting a 4-year deal. And I believe he'll get an extension in 2 years. I think JJ Reddick will be the next head coach to last longer than 3 years with the Lakers. I do. He might. I won't say too much. I don't want to jinx it. But man, I'm excited to see him and see what he does. I'm not a Lakers fan, guys, I swear. But there's just certain guys you got to support. LeBron and JJ Reddick. I like JJ Reddick. Another guy that I really like in the NFL, Rhamondre Stevenson, getting an extension, 4 years, $36 million. Not bad. Not bad. Not great. We all know running backs don't get paid much in the NFL. I know that statement sounds a little crazy when you hear someone getting paid $36 million, but remember, Dak wants $300 million. Trevor freaking Lawrence just got $275, and this guy's getting $36 million over 4 years. He was a sleeper some years ago. He was a sleeper. Nobody really knew his name. You may have seen him on the field. You maybe would have picked him up in fantasy, but if you did like I did and picked him up in fantasy that year, he did nothing because he didn't become who he was until the next year. And now we know him as Rhamondre Stevenson. But good for him, getting locked in there in Massachusetts, over there in New England. And then lastly, in-season Hard Knocks is going to feature yours truly, the Pittsburgh Steelers and company. Yeah, I said it. The Pittsburgh Steelers and their younger siblings there, the ones that they could pick on and bully, those guys. The stupid Bengals, Ravens, and the Browns. In addition to them, you'll have the New York Giants and Chicago. Now that will be interesting. I don't really know what the hell Caleb is going to do out there in Chicago. I don't know why Chicago waited so long to try to turn around the team when they had their Justin Fields out there. But they wait, I don't know. Who knows, right? But what I do know is they're still the Bears. And then you have the Browns, who are still the stupid freaking Browns. It doesn't matter who you add to that roster. Years ago, you had buddies of mine telling me, Ben is washed. You guys have nobody. The Browns have Odell. On paper, they're so much better. Like I said, we're always going to remain a competitive team no matter who is on our roster. We got to the freaking playoffs with Duck Hodges and Mason freaking Rudolph. Who, since his name has come up, as much as I didn't like the man Mason, I actually wanted him to stay on roster this year. I was so proud, for what it's worth. Me, the non-professional athlete, was proud to see this young man play the way he did here to wrap up our season this past year. I thought he did an excellent job. I was ecstatic to see Kenny go. I was never thrilled about Kenny being there. After I realized, we won't even get into that because we're supposed to wrap up here. But guys, nonetheless, with all that being said, I wish Mason Rudolph the best in his future endeavors. Kenny, have fun across the bridge in Philly. Right, good riddance. Man, it was terrible. No account. Ugh, gosh. But welcome to the new era, Steelers. This is it. This is going to be our year. No matter who gets the starting job. You see whispers about how talented that quarterback room is, how great they are, how good Justin Fields is looking, how good Russell Wilson is looking, and how great he feels. Oh, I'm excited. Am I buying anyone's jerseys yet? No. We get jerseys of guys who are going to stick around. Watt is the only person who I'm entertaining getting a jersey for at this point. And yep, that's right, I said entertaining. I have 3 jerseys, guys. Ben Roethlisberger, Antonio freaking Brown, and Troy freaking Polamalu. Boom. Staples. Are there other qualified guys? Absolutely. I'm not saying that there aren't. But when it comes to now purchasing a new jersey, I need to make sure the guy is going to be here and he's going to be around. Antonio Brown, that was a fluke. We all know this. The real fans know that should not have happened. But we also know that hit that Vontaze Burfict laid on him in that playoff game. Was it back in 2017? We know that did a number on him, and I promise you, he changed after that. I still think about that. But everyone, thank you for joining me for another episode of Game Time Chat. This is episode 3, and it is a wrap.